Okay, I think in this video, what I want to do next is the display tasks, right? Generating this HTML and stuff like that to add it so that there's a checkbox and a button and all that stuff. So let's see if we can find that. That should be down, no, right here, display tasks right there. And in here, right, we're generating this empty string, and then we loop through all of the tasks, and we get the task HTML string. Task HTML string, and that right here returns this template string where we insert, right? We have a div with the stuff inside of it. So this is going to take a big overhaul, and technically what we could do here, well, maybe I'll show this first. What we could do here is say inside of this div, I'm going to get rid of this class, and instead I want to do an input element where the type is equal to checkbox. Okay, and do we need to give it an ID? I don't know, I think we'll leave it for now. And then after the checkbox, we'll have the description. I could put it like here, but we can just do it on the next line too. So that's going to be the actual content. And then after it, I want a button that'll just say remove. Just remove is fine. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's something. Now, it might be nice to style this a little nicer so that the remove button is all the way to the right side. Well, what's the easiest way to do that? Well, my initial thought is to do some sort of a flex box where this is grouped together on the left and this is on the end. And Flexbox has these nice justify content space between kind of settings and stuff like that. But I don't know if we actually need that. I have a feeling that I could just select, I'm going to just for now select all buttons and use the float command. I'm going to try this. Hey, okay, that's pretty easy. Float right just floats it all the way to the right side. The problem with float is that if you have a lot of other content and if you had stuff like after this button, it gets really weird. So maybe Flexbox would be better, but for now that was pretty straightforward and easy. We'll just do that. Okay, and maybe we could add a little color here. Usually, let's go background color of like a red, and the text color can be a white, so it stands out a little bit more here. We'll go border none. Is that a thing? Yeah, okay, and maybe a little bit of padding, 2 pixels top and bottom, 5 pixels left and right. Just give it a little more space. I don't know if this looks better or worse. I'm not very good at styling. Oh, you know what always looks better with these buttons, I find, is the border radius. You can give it a little bit of a curl on the sides. And let's actually also do the border color as white. Oh, that's weird. No, that looks fine. Anyway, it doesn't matter that much what it looks like. What we're actually seeing there, I think that shadow, there's an outline, I think, on the buttons. They come within some default styles so that it has that little animation type thing, but that's fine for now. Okay. All right, so this is one way to do it. Right? This is one way where we just change our div, we still return this string. The problem with doing it this way is I want to add an event listener to this input element, and I want to add an event listener to this button so that things will change, right? I want to strike through this, and I want to change the completed status. When I click this, I want to actually remove the whole element. So we are going to do it a bit of a different way. Now, JavaScript can actually be used to create elements, and then we can append those elements to the end of something that already exists. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to keep this for now, but here's what's going to happen. We'll take in our task. We don't need the index anymore. Oh, actually, no, we do need that index. We'll talk about that later. We'll need it later. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use JavaScript to build the task div. All right, so let div element be assigned document.createElement. Okay, so there's an actual, and you give it the name of the element. So JavaScript will create a div element. Let's do a console.log of this div element just to see what in the world that is. Yeah, okay, this should still work. All right, it's a div with all of this crazy information associated with a div. Wow. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and that's because HTML elements have all this different. Oh, that's cool. It printed it out a little differently, right? So it's an empty div element. Crazy. All right, so what do I want to do with this div element now? Well, now we need to add stuff to this div element, right? We need to create an input element. Okay, so let's call it the checkbox element. The assign document dot create element input, and then I think we can go checkbox element dot type is assigned checkbox, right? We created a basic input element, and then we can set its type attribute to be the checkbox. Okay, and if I go console.log checkbox element, we should see, yeah, in here, right? It's an input with the type of checkbox, right? So this variable, right? This checkbox element variable is actually an HTML element. It's just not on the page, right? It's a JavaScript variable that's storing a reference to that element. So how can we add these elements to things? Well, like this. I can go div element dot append child, right? We want to add, the div element is the parent element, right? There's the div element, and we want to add children to it. So we're going to append child this checkbox element. Okay, and now let's just do, I love just confirming things. Let's print that out, and you'll now see that, oh, okay, it's a div element with, oh shoot, why don't I see it? Oh, because it's just a, no, I don't see them. Okay, I don't know why. And I don't know why sometimes it prints it this way, and sometimes it prints it the other way. Oh, Google Chrome, what are you doing to me? Anyway, we'll see what happens here. The idea here is that we appended this checkbox element to our div, so it should be inside our div element. We'll find out when we actually put it to the screen. So let's before we append stuff, let's actually make a couple more elements. We'll have our text element, which is document dot create text node. This is a little bit different. And inside of here, it's a string that specifies the node value property of the text node. Okay, cool. So when you just have like text in something, it's not an actual element. It's called a text node. That's how the browser treats it. And in here, we want to go task.description. Right, that's the text that we want in our text node. Awesome. And there's nothing else that we need for that. So then we'll go let our button element be assigned document.create element, and we'll create a button element, and then that button element we will set its inner HTML to say remove, right? Because otherwise it's just an empty button element. And we'll leave it at that for now. So let's actually change the order of this. So we're gonna, we'll create our checkbox element. We'll create our task description text node. We created that. We created our remove button. And now we'll create the div element, or add everything to a div element. So we create the div element, we append the checkbox, and append should add it to the end. And then we'll copy and paste this, and we'll add the text element, or text node technically, I guess, but okay, and then the button element. All right, and now instead of returning that string, I'm going to return the div element. Right, so we've built this entire div with the checkbox, the text, and the button, and we return it. And now we've got to change how we deal with how we return it. So display task is right here. We actually don't need this empty string anymore because we're not going to add, I'm going to get rid of the get task HTML string because it's not a string we're returning, it's the actual an HTML element. Get task HTML. And instead of adding it to our string, I want to add it to our container, which is our task element. So we can actually do this, tasks element dot append child, and we'll append whatever this function returns. And then we don't need this. Okay, so let's just quickly make sure, well, let's walk through this and hopefully it works. So we're going to loop through each task. We're going to say, okay, let's pass that task information into this function, which returns a div element. We're going to append that div element to our task container, right, or task element. And then it'll append the next div, and then the next div, and the next div, the next div. I really hope this works. We hit save. Wow, that actually kind of worked. Yay. Yeah, and the buttons are there. Okay, super cool. And that's just a weird live server error, I think, or something. I don't know where that comes from. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now I notice that there's not like a space here. I wonder if there was a space before because we hit a space, but now they're just, and we can change that with style. Do I want to do that now? The button, the task, the body. I don't think I have anything with this now. Okay, so I could do something like this where I select my input elements where type is equal to check box. Oh, I don't do this very often, but I think that's a thing. And we can just go margin right 5 pixels, 10 pixels. Right, and you can see that it gives that space there. This is just saying select all input elements whose type is equal to checkbox. And it styles them. Okay, anyway, I'm going to stop here. That's pretty cool. What we've done so far now is we've been able to modify this get task HTML string. So instead of returning a string, it's returning an actual HTML element. We're using this create element and create text node to create these elements and these nodes that we append to our div element. We return that div element, which gets appended to our task element. Okay. Now, I mentioned before, why did we do this? The reason we did this is because as we generate these elements, we can add event listeners to them. And we will do that in the next video.